Okay, so we're still going to continue with factoring trinomials, but if you notice, the form that I've written down this time refers to this being an ax squared, and of course it doesn't specify, like I did over here, that a is equal to 1. So just kind of a quick look at the examples I'm fixing to work. So like this time you've got a 5 in front of the x squared. Here we have a 3. Here we have a 4. Down here I have a negative 10. So actually putting a number besides just the understood 1 in front of your x squared is going to make it a little more difficult. You're going to have to do a little bit more thinking than what you did a while ago, but we've got a process that we're going to go through to make this happen. All right, so starting with the first one, again, go ahead and start with your 2 sets of parentheses. Now, as far as the x squared, that's going to happen just like we did a while ago. We're going to have to put an x here and put an x here, but I also have to be able to multiply and get 5. There is only one way to multiply and get 5, and that's 5 times 1. So it's good when you only have one way of doing something. That makes it a little harder to figure out, or not as hard to figure out. So that means I need to have a 5x and a 1x. That will give me that 5x squared. Now with 6, of course my choices for the 6 would be 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Now here's where it's different. With those other problems that we just finished working, like I was able to immediately pick which pair of numbers that I needed based on the middle one. I can't get a 17 from either pair of these numbers, but I've got this 5 that's affecting things now. So your choice, like I said, it's not going to be nearly as obvious as it was a while ago. Now I'm going to do this in pencil because I'm actually purposely do it wrong, so I don't want you to write this down just yet. Just listen to me and watch for just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to try the 2 and the 3 first. And if I were to put the 3 here and the 2 here. Now, a while ago I kept saying it didn't matter where I put the numbers, but it does now because this is a 5 and this is a 1. These two are not the same. So you putting the 2 and 3 in different places is going to give you different results. Now, what you got to do is see if this combination is going to give you this negative 17. And I'm not even going to worry about my signs just yet. We'll worry about that in a minute. Remember, this is the reverse of your FOIL method, okay? And if you remember, when you do FOIL, let me write it out here. Of course, that's just an acronym that stands for first, outer, inner, last. So it's these two, the outer and the inner, is where this negative 17 is going to come in. So when they say outer, that means we're going to multiply the 2 on the outside together. Now, I'm just going to treat everything as positive for just a minute. So if I were to multiply the 5x times the 2, I get a 10x. Then if I multiply the inners, the 3 times the x, that's going to give me 3x. Now, again, you can make things negative if you needed to make them negative, but there is no way to take a 10 and a 3 by adding, even if you make something negative, and come up with a negative 17. Okay, so this is what you're going to have to do just to see if you've got the right combination. Okay, now what I'm going to do is switch the 2 and the 3. Okay, so I'm going to put the 2 here, put the 3 here. Of course, that's going to make my multiplication here different. So now if I multiply the 2 on the outside, I get a 15. If I multiply the 2 on the inside, I get a 2. Okay, now this seems promising. Now I'm needing to get a negative 17 in the middle. Now the only way to get a negative 17 is if I were to make both of those negative and then of course add. Remember, that's what we kept doing a while ago to get the middle number, was to add. But if you add a negative 15 and a negative 2, you do get your negative 17. Now I'll also double check about your signs. Are you supposed to have like signs, or are you supposed to have different signs? Okay, this goes back to this last term is positive, which tells me that I am supposed to have like signs down here, which goes along with what I figured out. I need a negative 15 and a negative 2. I need both to be negative. So having a -2 and having a -3, this is the correct combination. Now, there's only one correct combination for any of these, okay? So, you know, if you're talking with your neighbor on how to work a problem and one says this is the answer and your neighbor says that this is the answer, only one of you can be correct. There's only one correct combination. Now, all of this that I've kind of been scribbling over here, I mean, that's something you can do in your head if you want to. This is what I'll be looking for, of course, for the answer. Okay, so a lot of explaining kind of there on that first one. We'll move through these others a little bit quicker. All right, 2 sets of parentheses. So 3x squared, I don't have a choice there but to go with 3x times x. Now, with 8, I could have 1 times 8, or I could have 2 times 4. Okay, again, I'm going to do this with pencil, and so just kind of sit and watch for just a second. If I were to put the 4 here and the 2 here, okay, so if I multiply these two together, I get a 12x. If I multiply these two together, I get a 2x. Now, I can take a 12 and a 2 and get a 10, but that's going to require that the 12 be positive and the 2 be negative. Because if I were to add a 12 and a negative 2, then I do get a positive 10. But this is positive, this is negative. That means different signs. Now look at your problem. If you notice right here, this is positive. That tells me that the signs I'm supposed to have down here are supposed to be like. That means these both need to be positive or these both need to be negative. So it appeared that I had the right combination, but the rule about my signs is not working, okay? So maybe we need to change it. Okay, so let's put the 4 here and put the 2 here. Okay, now let's see what we've got. So now when I multiply the outsides together, I get 6x. On the part on the inside, I get a 4x. Okay, well, I can take a 6 and a 4 and also get a 10, and that's going to require that those both be positive. I mean, if you have a positive 6 and a positive 4, and you add them, you do get a positive 10. And of course, this right here is what you have to have because of needing like signs. So this is the correct combination. They both need to be positive. So you can come back in and fill that in as being your answer. So always double check the rule about your signs, because you may not have the right combination, okay? All right, here's another one. Okay, 4x squared. Now here's the thing about this. I actually have 2 ways that I can get 4, because I could go with 4x times 1x or 2x times 2x. So this time I even have an option with my first set of numbers. I'm going to try 2 and 2. So since this could be something else, I'm going to do this in pencil too, and then we'll figure out what the right answer is. So again, you might want to just sit and watch at this point. 9, of course, 9 times 1, 3 times 3. I'm going to try 3 times 3. Okay, so then if I do these two on the outside, I get a 6x. Do these on the inside, I get a 6x. My middle term that I'm trying to get needs to be a 12. Okay, now that can happen only if those are both positive, which means, am I allowed to put both sets of parentheses with the same sign, like signs? So your last term is positive, which does tell you like signs. That is what you needed in order to get the 12. So here is the correct combination. So how you got your answer is no different than what we did a while ago, but you notice your 2 parentheses are the same. That can happen sometimes. Now, if you're checking your answer, like, you know, those odd answers that are in the back of the book, you're actually going to see this written only one time, but raised to the 2nd power. Because remember, if you have two of the same thing being multiplied, then that means that you have that two of those, you can just square it. It doesn't matter, you know, when you're working your test, whether you write your answer this way or you write your answer this way. I would accept it either way. Of course, like when it comes to working on those quizzes and, you know, having multiple choice, then this would probably, I'm sure, be what the software has listed as the answer. Just be aware that means the same thing. Okay, next one. Now, we had one a while ago in which we had a negative in front, and I told you when you're factoring your trinomials, then you're going to want this first term to be positive. So first thing I'm going to do, same thing I did a while ago, was to take out a -1. So that means I now have a positive 10x squared minus x minus 21. Okay, so -1 is part of your answer. Do your two sets of parentheses. Okay, so my first term is 10, so I could go with 10x times x or 5x times 2x. So I'm going to try 5 and 2. Again, I'm doing this in pencil. Now, with 21, of course, 1 times 21 or 3 times 7. So I'm definitely going to try the 3 and the 7 first. Okay, if I were to put, let's say, the 3 here, 7 here. Okay, if I multiply these two together, the outsides together, I get a 35. In the middle, I get a 6. But you cannot use a 35 and a 6 to get a -1. Okay, so this is not the right combination. Okay, so maybe I just need to switch the 3 and the 7. Okay, so let's put the 7 here and put the 3 here. So now when I multiply the outsides, I get 15. The insides, I get 14. Okay, now this seems promising. I'm trying to get a -1x for my middle term. That means the 15 is going to need to be negative. The 14 is going to need to stay positive. So when you add a -15 and a 14, you do get a -1. So this would mean different signs. Of course, going back to this step right here, my last term is negative, which does indicate that I am supposed to have different signs, okay? So, figuring out which one goes where. Now, this is +5. So I've got to decide, do I need to make the 3 positive or negative to get my -15? So this would have to be my minus sign, because if I do a +5 times the -3, that gives me that -15. Put a plus sign here because a +7 times a +2 is going to give me my +14. So this is the correct combination for this problem. So you just kind of have to play around with your numbers in order to make these work out sometimes.